Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a great lunch. My name's Liz Hyman. I'm the CEO of the XR Association. We're a nonprofit industry trade association representing the immersive technology industry. And we're all about how do we grow our industry, educate policymakers, develop best practices, and really think about the trends that we're seeing out there and what it means for the growth and development of the industry. I'm so excited to be here at AES. This is actually my first conference for AES, so it's really a thrill. But what I love about it is all about that future think and where we are today and where we're going. A lot of the conversations so far, I think, have really captured what I believe is just such a very hopeful moment in our technology and industry, which is this convergence of XR with things like AI, particularly Gen AI. We're seeing location-based services, all kinds of important developments in broadband, and robotics and quantum computing. All of these things are coming together, and we're starting to get some clarity, frankly, on what that means for meat and potatoes results in our enterprise and in our industrial settings. And so, so thrilled to be able to have a conversation here today on that topic. And we have a really, really great panel. So I am not going to take up much time other than to say, why don't we start at the end and introduce yourself, and then we're just going to work our way down, and then we'll get into some questions for everybody. So.
Certainly. My name is Mohammed Abbas. I work for TD Bank. I sit with the enterprise innovation team. So I look at things from ideation all the way to scale. We test proof of concepts and identify new products and services to expand our marketplace for the bank. Most recently, we worked on an initiative for immersive learning, where we launched branch training for our frontline colleagues using virtual reality, and it was a very immersive experience to teach them the real life scenarios and prepare them for interactions with customers in person when they visit.
Great.
I'm Jeffrey. I work for Southwest Airlines. I'm in the innovation team, so we don't do the training and a lot of the other use cases you see around here. We do all the other stuff. So things that are passenger focused, things that are helping out flight attendants, things that are helping out ground ops, the ramp agents, that sort of thing. And so that a lot of it is things like digital signage or music on a jet bridge, ways to help passengers move a little bit more, things to optimize these different process flows. And with XR, we're doing different types of visualization to show, here's how we're going to change these sort of things, here's how people will flow, so we can walk people through these experiences.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm very excited to be here. This is my second conference. The first one I attended was about 10 years ago, and it's very exciting to see how this conference has grown and how it's expanded, and we just love the vision. So I'm George Helstern. I work for Lockheed Martin. Thank you to Jason, who introduced Lockheed earlier and gave a great presentation on some of the work that he's doing. I'm in a different group than he is. I work in advanced development programs, also known as skunkworks. We're focused on research and development for the aeronautics division, and my team in specifics works on artificial intelligence. We've been trying to push into the XR business area, but it's a slow go, and getting senior executive funding into it is the biggest hurdle. But we kind of envision how XR, augmented reality, can help the cockpit, can help the pilot gain better situational awareness. We're seeing it in the maintenance realm, where AI is helping with, helping the maintainer know how to fix the airplanes, improving training, that sort of thing. So our in research and development world, we get to kind of extend we get to push the bounds, and so that's what I enjoy doing.
Hi everybody, my name is Doug Gore. I am the Enterprise Innovation Architect for Lilly. If you didn't know, Lilly is a global medicines company. So our technologists cover a wide range of functions, including things like drug discovery and research and development, clinical trials, manufacturing of medicines, and marketing, even now marketing direct to consumers. So my job is to make it easier to innovate across all of those functions. And today we're doing that through a common framework and a program that we call a Tech Innovation Pipeline, where we connect innovators. It could be either grassroots or programs that are kind of our big bets or things that we're focused on as a company. And we help connect people with technologies, knowledge, resources in order to move through our pipeline, which is a series of innovation steps that we do that focuses on speed to value and guided by user design principles. This past year, I think 90% of everything that's come through our pipeline has had AI in it, related somehow. But we're starting to see some pretty cool convergences of AI and XR technology, and we're getting excited for those use cases. Have a lot in beta mode now, some things that we're looking at early release soon.
Great. And Bharat?
Hey everyone, first of all, can you guys hear me? Yes. So first of all, I would like everybody to take a deep breath. All right, now I can introduce myself.
Excellent. That helps with digestion after lunch.
Yes. My name is Bharat Sharma. I work for CSX. So if you guys don't know what CSX is, we are the one of the largest freight trains in East Coast. So if you live there, it's very common that some of the household items you have at home, it was on the CSX train once in its lifetime. I lead the computer vision and automation for CSX under a group called Innovation. So you can think of us as like a startup within CSX. We take all the projects and we basically come up with innovative ideas to solve the problems. So basically in my group, when everybody stops thinking, that's where we start thinking. And in our area, what we do is we basically don't think of technology as what it can solve. What we think is we go in a side view and we can say how we can take this technology and we can utilize in our railroad to solve all the problems. Safety is one of the biggest things that we try to solve. We are in a very, very early stage of XR, VR, AR. We have like old simulators that we use for training purposes, but we are combining a lot of AI, computer vision, edge computing to build like something different, and we'll talk more about like when we go forward.
Cool. Well, wonderful group, and maybe Bharat, that's a great way to start with you. And obviously AI has been on everyone's minds this year. There's no question. But where you sit, dare I say, it's a little bit of a skunk works within CSX, right? And you're really trying to look at what some of the trends are, and sure, we can all talk about where AI and XR come together, but what are you seeing more specifically from your perspective? You talked a little bit about safety, and I would imagine some of the predictive analytics pieces of this. What are some of the trends that you're seeing that are the result of this convergence of AI and XR?
Sure, thanks, Liz.
Yeah.
So, bless you. Oh, bless you, by the way. So, I would like to share a small story with you guys. So what you can think is we have 26,000 miles of track. It is very, very hard to maintain them without using any technologies. So if you take AI, computer vision, AR, these are the technologies which are our best friends. So if, probably I'm like getting a little nervous over here. So what you can think about is like if we take AI, computer vision, edge computing, and we can utilize it to, actually, can you go first? How are we gonna go next?
Oh, yeah, jump in. Sorry.
Sure.
Yep.
So we are experimenting with this convergence of AI and XR that has a lot to do with actual end user experiences. So there's this topic that, or a theme of innovations that we've been working on internally called digital people. Some call it digital humans, and most of you, if you see it, you're gonna say it's an avatar. But I think the difference between this technology and avatar is that an avatar is kind of controlled by a person behind the scenes, like a digital puppet, if you will, or a digital person or a digital human is a complex AI agent who's actually calling the shots behind the scenes, deciding what to say and how to say it. The most interesting part about this technology, and in my view, is kind of pushing the limits of what we've seen ever before in human-to-computer interaction, and that's the emotional connection that we're seeing through nonverbal communication. So things like hand gestures and body posture and facial expressions can be really expressive, not only in what you see when you're talking to a digital human or a digital person, but also in how it can read your emotions. So tone of voice, taking the text that you're speaking and doing analysis on it to determine what kind of mood you might be in. And what's really cool about this is that it's not really focused on one of the functional areas that we cover. Because any kind of learning and development that you want to use to like role play, to practice a situation is a great use case for. It's also something that we're using for, we're planning on using for support. So we have a digital person named Bella. She does tech support. You can go and talk to Bella, and she's really friendly and conversational and knows a lot of information that we've trained into her and into Bella as things that are specific for IT support at our company, but can also go into a whole number of things, anything related to tech. We kind of honed down a large language model to give it a personality and a name, and it's just kind of changing the dynamic of how we interact with the things that we call today as chatbots. But this is kind of just next evolution of what I see as a chatbot.
I want to come back to that in a little while, because that also raises a question around origin or source of information, because you're now kind of giving sort of a human touch, if you will, to the thing that is delivering information, and what does that mean in terms of trust behind it. But I parked that for 1 second because I wanted to also come to Jeffrey, because you mentioned learning and development. My organization looks a lot at how this technology is interacting in the workforce and what it means for job training and upskilling. In fact, we did a survey recently of about 600 manufacturing decision makers, and this XR technology is very much a part of the picture that going forward when it comes to workforce training and job skilling. But that's true across every sector. And I know, Jeffrey, thinking about what's going on at Southwest and how you all are thinking about this topic, I wonder if you could share a little bit about where this technology and the convergence with AI plays.
So I've been coming to this conference for 6 years now, and when I first came, someone did a presentation. In my head, it was Caterpillar, could have been somebody else, and they showed how tribal knowledge just degrades the quality of work. So you're working with something, you have to move off and check a binder or check a computer, you go back, and the next time you do it, you're like, I kind of remember where it is, but that causes a problem that cascades. And I absolutely love the idea of some sort of headset or something that just has minimal information right there as you're working. That's all I need. I just need that little hint. Just give me the, oh, okay, yeah. So we're playing with things like jig space and stuff like that to try to see how can we make this stuff better for anywhere from the mechanics, anywhere from just processes of training flight attendants, any sort of like little manual things where you've got multiple processes. It's really easy to get caught up and confused, and then if we want to deploy a change to a process, then everybody has to get retrained. It just, having this sort of thing now, I think is going to make things so much easier for rolling stuff out, making sure your workforce is up to speed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and George, I think that's like the perfect lead-in to some of the work that you're doing in terms of pilot augmentation. I'm not getting that quite right, but
Yeah,
you can.
excellent. So
Yeah.
at the business level, AI is transforming how we do business processes, how we do strategy, how we visualize data. And I think augmented reality comes along with it, just exactly what you're saying, and getting that data to the decision makers at that enterprise level. And in the middle tier, where you have operational support, you're talking about logistics, you're talking about maintenance, you're talking about training, and the application space there is broad, and there's a lot of room for augmented reality coupled with artificial intelligence, especially in that training domain, and there's really no especially about it. At the lower tier, which is where I work, is the operational layer. And what you were referring to is kind of the fun stuff that we get to do. Back in 2019, we started a program at DARPA called DARPA ACE. And as part of that DARPA ACE program, there was this pre-section that was sponsored by DIUX. And it was called Alpha Dogfight Trials. And what we did was we used reinforcement learning to fly two F-16s together in an artificial intelligence and augmented reality environment to do within visual range basic fighter maneuvers, which is basically dogfighting. And so you had these two airplanes converge, and then they would do the turn circle entry, and then they would try and get into the control position behind the other aircraft and fire it until it's gone. And they had like a 14-second timer. So AI with reinforcement learning was the driver there. Augmented reality was the way to visualize it and to take part in it. And we sort of envision this for the future. How can the pilot better interact with his own vehicle, and then how can the pilot better interact with unmanned vehicles that he's going to be flying with, he or she is going to be flying with in the future.
And, sorry, how long ago were you looking at that?
That started in 2019, and we're still
Okay.
going. DARPA ACE is in its 4th phase right now, and we've got two performers that are actually doing dogfights, and they're on a Vista airplane, which is a Lockheed Martin F-16 modified by our team that allows you to have AI actually control the control surfaces. It's really the outer loop control that is sending the program into the inner loop controls, but that's...
The next Top Gun movie is going to be epic. is
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
exactly.
No
So,
humans.
I think George is out on the beach playing volleyball, is what
Yeah.
you're saying. Okay.
And that's the operational layer. And then additionally, we don't just do fighter pilots, we also do ISR platforms. So how can you improve how you take collections, and how can you improve how you become invisible in the sky? And those are things that AI can help you with, as well as augmented reality. And so we're here to kind of see what's out there and learn about the state of the art.
Yeah. And this really is this, how do we empower people to take their work to a next level? I don't know, Mohammed, if you wanted to comment a little bit on how that fits into some of our financial services.
Yeah, certainly. So if you think about it in banking as methods, what we did was we looked at real life scenarios that happen on a day-to-day. Customers either coming in because they've experienced a surcharge or a maintenance fee that was unexpected, or a check hold was placed. So dealing with those conversations, you would want to show skill sets with confidence and ease to be able to assist the customer. We built real life scenarios into a virtual reality experience where branch employees would put on the headsets and probably go through 15 minutes of training to deal with those interactions. And we have behind the scenes where AI is embedded to use oncology mapping to understand whether the colleague who's responding back to the virtual customer is identifying the cues and they're hitting the mark and really assisting the customer through a public resolution model, such as like, are you hearing the customer out? Are you sharing empathy? Are you nurturing them and responding and assessing their needs? So as they're picking up on the cues, they go through a self-assessment and reflect, and then there's a voice playback where they're able to hear themselves. They're able to hear their tone of voice, and kind of like a coach-to-coach method. What we noticed is that as colleagues go through it from a proficiency in trying to master their own craft, they've improved on their skill sets, where I think we saw a 41% increase course over course where they thanked customers. And we also noticed that they 2x'd by product recommendations as well. So when we take it back from a behavioral, we're collecting all of the data from the headsets and the interactions. We look at the behavioral insights to map the cues to say that they align with our policies and procedures internally with how we would engage with the customer and solve their needs. And that data gets analyzed to relate it back to our KPIs and see whether VR is worth the opportunity for us to scale, and it's a new method of training compared to traditional training. So when we looked at our colleagues' sentiments and we look at percentages to say, would you recommend this, or the analytics that came back, basically colleagues were saying that they felt 80% felt that VR training was more effective than traditional methods.
That's a good number, so for sure. And I would imagine, Barack, coming back to you, just thinking about the power of this from a safety point of view, I'm guessing that maybe there's some good analytics as well, but could you tell us a little bit more about how CSX is employing this?
Yes, definitely. So there was a hiccup before, but I think this will be a good one. So we think of as edge first. The reason I say edge first is because if you go into the railroad, the first thing that we use the bandwidth is to run the trains. So everything needs to run on an edge. We have lots and lots of sensors. We have a lot of really high-tech camera systems and some lower systems too. So bandwidth is a huge, huge issue. So what we do is we have strategically placed cameras across all our network, which is 26,000 miles. We have lots and lots of sensors. We capture all the information. The images that are being captured are sometimes like really huge. So you really can't sell that information to the cloud for processing. So what you do is you basically take that information, run on the edge. You can use an NVIDIA Orion, you can use a Dell box. It depends upon the use case and how much money the business is willing to invest. The reason I'm saying is because we need to scale it a lot. So if you're using like an edge device, which is like $2,000, and we do it in like 20,000 locations, it's like $18 million plus. So what we do is we do all our analysis right over there on an edge device. And once we have this, then this AR comes as a transformative tools. So all the AI algorithms that we have developed, we quantize them so much that they run on an edge device. So currently, we just use a PeliJammer model. We quantize it like so much that we are able to run it like really good on a 64 Orion. And there is a huge problem, which most of the people might not know, or they might know, that reading a stencil or something vertically is very, very hard. And we just solved the problem. So what does this all pertain to? So now imagine there's a worker who's on a track, he's inspecting. If you guys have not worked in an outdoor location, it's very, very hot, it's very, very cold. Now somebody has to like literally walk a mile to find a defect. Imagine he's wearing an AR glass or he has a tablet. All the systems are capturing the information in real time. They're processing everything on an edge device. They're taking that information and they're sending to the AR device. So when the inspector is walking, he gets a real-time alert on a tablet or on a glass. The glasses don't really work for us. The tablet is something which really works because once you are out in the field, the battery is a huge issue, the temperature is a huge issue. But once you get that alert, you can take a tablet or you can take an AR glass and you can exactly know where the location the defect is. Once you know that a location of the defect, all the edge devices which are running, processing information, they're streaming it live. Now, once you have all this information, what you can do is you can take a look at it, and on the real-time view, you will get an overlay. Now the inspector will know exactly what the issue is and how he can solve it. Now, you can use LLMs, you can use documents and everything, you can process it, but again, like I said, processing everything on cloud is a little bit harder. Running on an edge device, perfect. Now you can pull up a document, say there is an issue, I send in information to the edge device responds back, you get the information, and now you're solving it. Now, there are times when you really can't solve that issue. What you can do is, you can use your AR glasses or an iPad, and you can do a remote assistance. You can call an expert. So in rural industry, it's very hard to find people who know everything. So people have like 30 years of experience, they can really literally pinpoint what the issue is. So if you are new, what you can do is like, you'll take a look at it, and you can't solve this problem. What you do is, you call the expert comes in, you guys both work together, you solve the issue. And because of the power of the edge computing, what you can do is everything is streamlined. So if somebody changes, you can send a command to the edge computing, it can process all the information, it can get all the information back to you. You can use the documents, you can train your models, or you can have the LLMs to give the information, but with my experience at least, it's not 100% accurate. It's like in like 90% accurate. And you have to be like very, very precise when you're solving these issues. So with the help of an AR, when you have a remote assistant, with his experience, he can tell you the issue, he can solve it, and you can document it. Once all these issues are resolved, there's a huge benefits, huge safety. We are making everything safer for our employees. Now, there's less unplanned downtime, and we're increasing the life of our equipments.
So in every example that you all have provided, the good news is there's really cool outcomes and results. But with every example that has been provided, there are still barriers that need to be addressed in order for this to scale up. Doug, I wanted to come back to you and just sort of finish that conversation about source of data, right? If you're thinking about this sort of humanoid presentation, in the pharmaceutical world, I'm guessing there's a very narrow audience that you're trying to impress upon, or is it for the general consumer? And how do we guarantee the provenance of data? And I'm guessing Mohammed might have a similar concept as well.
Yeah, so it's actually both internal and external in
Okay.
the pharmaceutical world. First, like if you think about having all of the knowledge of your organization trained into like one person, that's not possible unless you're, actually I have a 14-year-old who does know everything. So maybe we just need to figure out what TikTok channels to be watching. But yeah, in terms of like the provenance of data, if you're leveraging a large language model, you know, something like ChatGPT, which has been trained on all the information around the internet, there's techniques that are involved in order to hone a model. There's something called fine tuning you can do. You can use RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, where you're basically telling the AI to answer based off of these documents and only these documents. So there's a number of things that you can do, but the issue of hallucinations is ultimately the concern. I don't know that that's 100% solved or even solvable, because AI is essentially it's all based on probability. These are neural networks that are built around linear equations that hundreds of thousands of them that are interconnected and have different weights. So everything's a probability. But I think there's some interesting things you can do, but ultimately you need to make sure whatever you're doing, if it has to be exact, that you're building a solution that is either pulling from something that's either predetermined and using AI to determine what an answer should be, if it's a pre-approved answer or set of responses, or really test with hundreds or thousands of iterations of how a conversation can go, and see whether or not the responses you're getting back are adequate for whatever your use case is. And obviously, if safety is paramount, that's something to really consider.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, earlier I know you were talking about the human AI avatar. Last year when I was at AES, I actually presented one here in person, and it was part of the use case and the research that I've done was that, to highlight some of the metrics you were asking for earlier, within that space, if you take a look into the industry, something as character AI focuses on companionship, and it's building generative AI human avatar models that are nostalgic to you, and it could be used as a chat capability with a GPT model behind it. The growth over time was like, they kind of broke one of the records where within 8 months, I think 6 to 8 months, they had over 19 million users. So it kind of tells us that people are looking for AI agents and assistants to either go about their day and kind of be more like ambient computing, I guess you could say, to look out for their needs, whether it's financial or even social. Hence why you're seeing Meta now come out with, the alias personality of, I think it was like Tom Brady and Zendaya and all of them, and it's used through Instagram. And if you look at like ARK Invest Research, I think they wrote a great publication around AI companionship, how it's going to grow over a period of time, and it's going to be leveraged within our on-device computing processing platform, where you can actually go in, and as you're navigating screen by screen, you'll have an AI agent with you throughout the day to basically assist you or complete a task.
Yeah.
And I would just add, like, a lot of people are looking at AI and data and make the assumption that trust is going to be a barrier to adoption. But there's some evidence out there that people if you're having a conversation with a human, you might not trust the lack of judgment that you're going to receive. So even people who are talking to their psychiatrists, like they just naturally you hold back certain things that you say. And what's interesting about this, if we can build experiences that feel really personal and like a human connection is occurring, but the user knows it's not a human that's going to judge them, I think we're going to start seeing more applications of this technology when it comes to our social interactions.
That's so interesting. Well, I want to just dive in a little bit more to some of the other challenges that we're seeing in terms of adoption of XR and AI as a potent tool in the workplace. And I wonder, Jeffrey, thinking about Southwest and some of the challenges that you've seen, is it cost? Is it trying to show your C-suite how this works? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis?
Form factor.
Form factor.
So what we need is this, right? And I'm okay with you having a giant computer next to me and be tethered, but that's really, and we'll get there. In the crypto world, the crypto language, we're early. I mean, this stuff is brand new to most people. The stuff you guys were talking about with LLMs, 5 years ago, I was asked to take the flight attendant manual, which is huge, and they basically couldn't search for it because if they were searching for it, you have to use the right language. And so saying, I've got an unaccompanied minor, what happens if X, Y, Z? Well, if you don't use the right language, you won't find your answer in the manual, and the FAA requires them to have the manuals. There's this whole thing. Anyway, so I started going through dialogue flow and all the different types of systems, AI/ML and all that, Pandora bots, and just great if I had a room full of writers, basically, to document and categorize and all of that stuff. And then I started playing with GPT-2. And I was playing around with it, and I was like, this is fantastic. It's wrong, but oh my gosh, it sounds real. Well, then it's been 2 years now, 3 years since then, and look where we are. We are in the future already. So, but we're still so early. So when we show the C-suite stuff, yes, they don't really need or want all of this stuff, but some of the little things that we've been showing have been magical. And when they get the idea of it, it doesn't even really matter what kind of duct tape and glitter we're using to make this stuff work, because it's communicating the idea, and they can see it. They see where it could be coming. They know what they have now is not what it's going to be, but we're evolving constantly with it. So.
Yeah, and George, I'm guessing there are multitudes of challenges in terms of scaling up from your perspective.
Absolutely. So 8 out of the 10 most perfectly played chess games were a human and a machine working together. When we did the outfit dogfight trial, the AI beat the human 5 times out of 5. And it wasn't just any human, it was a human who graduated from the Air Force Weapons School, which is like the PhD of pilots. So to say that it works is an understatement. But when we implemented air-to-ground collision avoidance system, it took us 25 years to get that on the jet, from the point where we had the solution to the point where it got through the cultural barriers, got through the technical barriers, and got onto the jet. And since then, we've saved, I think, 10 lives and 9 airplanes, although that statistic, I think, is a year old, so we probably have saved some more. And it's getting on all the jets. So there's a cultural barrier, there's a trust barrier for the things that we're doing. And I would say there's a process barrier, there's airworthiness, and airworthiness requires verification and validation. And when you start thinking about how you verify and validate an autonomous system, your mind kind of starts to explode, because you can't think of all the test cases to adequately test an autonomous system. And so we're working with the government to figure that out. There's been several contract opportunities that are coming open in the recent months, actually, for that type of research to go forward. And we're working on it internally. And then form factor, I would 100% agree. The Gehemix headset on the F-35 is one of the most advanced headsets that you have, and it gives you some augmented reality capabilities, but to add even another gram onto that helmet is going to violate what you can actually put on a human because of the whiplash that can happen with sudden stops, with carrier landings, et cetera. So I would summarize it three major hurdles: cultural, process, and then form factor for us.
Yeah. And Doug, I was sort of getting at the cultural piece when I asked you earlier about the humanoid concept, but are there other things that are sort of a challenge in your world in terms of application of AI and XR?
So George, I think, touched on the majority of it. Like in the consumer space, it's definitely form factor. There's not a lot of people that are using like headsets, and you don't typically look at that as something that you grab when you're coming home from work. I think the glasses are going to be there as like a consumer device, and that's going to open up a whole world of possibilities, and the things that we're talking about and the challenges that we have today when it comes to implementing XR technologies are just going to melt away almost overnight. And then it's going to be a race to, who can get in as fast as they can into the consumer experience. When it comes to like challenges internally, what I see is like, it's more around the user population of adopting the same thing for the same reasons. If you're working for 8 hours a day in a manufacturing facility, putting on a heavy thing on your head and obscuring some of your view sometimes, and it's not an experience that everyone wants to have at work. And if it does the opposite of what you're trying to do with your solution, then it's definitely not going to move forward. But we've had some success with moving stuff forward when it comes to building things small, like in incremental chunks. So I also encourage people to dream big, but step small. Like build a prototype and get people excited about that. It's much better than trying to explain something on a slide deck or even show numbers. Getting the feeling of something new and exciting and goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I deal a lot with audiences in Washington, D.C. and policymakers, elected officials, and our mantra is try the device on. That's the only way you're going to truly understand how this all works, but that's always got its challenges as well. Are there some challenges that we haven't mentioned? It sounded like form factor was definitely one for you.
Yes. No, I totally agree with what everybody has said.
Yeah.
So ours is an outdoor sports. What I've seen over here is like everything is like inside in a very controlled environment. I would like to see more of like the things which can be done in an uncontrolled environment. So people who are working outside, when we're working on a locomotive, we're working on a track, you have to make sure like their hands are dirty. They're trying to like touch everything. You have a glass or something, you got to adjust it. There's a shift that changes, goes to the next person comes in, he has to go and adjust it. So you got to train the person. And you can't buy so many of these glasses or the headsets. You really have to be like cost effective. Plus, every time, like I see, like we wear like hard hats, you have to have like a full PPE to have their form factor. The battery life is a huge thing. If the person is outside and is walking 1 mile, the battery dies in the middle. Then what can you do? So all these factors, I totally agree with everyone.
Yeah. So, Mohammed, I'm going to come back to you, because we all are here because we believe in this technology and we think that it can really make a huge difference, but form factor, cost, all of these things. What are some pieces of advice, very tangible pieces of advice that we can rally around to begin to scale up application where we're looking at AI, XR, it could be robotics, it could be the edge computing that we heard about. How does this all come together? What are some hints and tips for everybody that we can think about?
Yeah, so it really, for concepts like this, it's investing in your people, trying to make their jobs better and see that there's growth and opportunities for them to learn new skill sets and build confidence within their current roles. The process to really go through it depends on the culture in your organization. So if your organization strives with an innovation practice where it gives you the opportunity, like 20% of your job could be part of scaling and testing proof of concepts because you're curious as an organization, I think that's going to unlock the next road where you start to gauge AI, XR, quantum computing, which is coming down next. It gives you the opportunity to really just test it in a very controlled environment. Do it where it's at a very low cost and it's cost effective, because you're not trying to break the bank. I think you're trying to see if the new technology could solve a problem and what does it tie back to. Within that framework and that model, all of your learnings, you can iterate and make it better. But like you had illustrated, like showing a slide, if you're not walking in with a demo, it's going to be very hard to believe that it works. But if you put the headset onto an executive, they get the experience, and then they'll see, okay, there's a customer yelling at you virtually. What are you going to do about it? You know, where are your skill sets to show empathy, product recommendation, and kind of resolve the matter? That is eye-opening. And I believe that, showing stats is going to sit well with the executive, but if you put them through the ringer, it kind of tells a better story. Then towards the end, as you're developing and going through your stage gate of your, of your innovation framework and highlighting the outcome of your results, I think that's where you could start to pitch and say, here's an agnostic way how we could build, immersive learning technology, not just for frontline employees, but across multiple departments, even corporate colleagues. So that way everyone is trained on the same language or sector. Then you can kind of show the benefits all around, and it's either you adopt it as part of your toolkit, or you really take the learnings and you take the research, and you could go to different routes. You could do external publications, you could highlight everything that you've accomplished, and you could show that you're really striving, as your culture really matters about striving to show innovation practices within your space, and you're trying to do things to make make the company better, employees' job better at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask this question because Jeffrey indicated a willingness to take it on. But I mentioned earlier that I look a lot at public policy and how, when we're talking about a convergence of technologies like AI, like XR, edge computing, location services, we're trying to explain this all to policymakers. But is there a role that you think policymakers could play or should be aware of to help advance what we're trying to do in the industry?
So you had asked this question of me before, and my initial answer was, it's too soon for them. They're not going to, they don't understand. It's so hard to even get them to understand the right questions to ask to be able to make any sort of determination. But after we talked and I learned a little bit more about all the work that is done by these different policy groups and stuff, I was like, okay, if you put something on someone, give them a physical demo, get them immersed, get them to experience it, I think then they'll come out of it and they'll either, hopefully, say, I understand more questions now to ask. I don't think they're going to instantly be experts, but they have to have that, they have to be in it, basically. They have to be here with us to know what's going on. And as a developer, I'd say they have to kind of play with it to be able to really get it before you can make any sort of decisions that would impact the country, impact the world.
Well, I would just say, in addition to that, it's sort of like talking to your C-suite. You need to be able to, all of us have to be able to explain what the return on investment is. Why is this something that is impactful to the user, the consumer, and to society at large? And so it's a similar audience in that regard. But I wanted to we're down to about 2 minutes. I wanted to make sure if there were any questions in the audience that you have an opportunity to ask them. So please raise your hand if you have a question. I see there, we're going to take one mic because we're going to run it down, and just let us know who you are. That woman right there, yep. Just 1 second. And I assume also when we're done, those that can hang out will be outside and available to answer additional questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my question is to Jeff. You did say, policymakers should be brought closer so that they know what they're making policies about. They shouldn't be making it from afar. But how do you encourage them to make policies that are pro what you're trying to let them, assess? That it's not negative to, they saying they want to make policies that will make it harder to adopt, but make it easier to adopt some of this. How do you work with them to make it easier to adopt some of these things through the policies that they make?
See, that's the thing. I'm not a policy guy. I'm a developer. And so to me, I'm like, it's way too soon for them to even start because they don't know what it is, because we kind of don't know what it is. We're playing with a lot of similar use cases. We found that out. But it's still completely brand new to us. And we're just like, every day somebody tweets something new, or we see something on Instagram, and we're like, ooh, that's a new exploit or this or that. And we're still working with it and playing with it. This is like the beginning of the web before anything happened. And now, and that excitement in 1995 when you see somebody puts a URL on a billboard and you're like, it's coming now, finally. And then it still took 5 or 10 years after that. I think it's too soon for them to start making decisions, and I'm worried that they're going to make knee-jerk reactions. So
And I hope we graduate our efforts, that it graduates up. In other words, you had companies like Walmart and Accenture. I think most of us have heard the stories about integration into workforce training that have been very successful and documented. You have studies like PwC, which has worked to quantify, if you will, what return on investment is in particular training scenarios, what it means for protecting against harms and dangers in real world scenarios. And so we do have sort of crumbs, I would say more than crumbs, of evidence that shows that this is something worthwhile for our leadership to consider. And yes, as AI and XR converge, I think there's more education to be done. But I'm so thrilled to have had this conversation with you all, and really appreciate the time. And as I said, folks will be out back for questions. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.